Once upon a time, in the year 2045, a brilliant scientist named Dr. Emily Johnson had just completed her life's work. She had invented a time machine. After many years of research and experimentation, she had finally found a way to send people back in time. Excited to test out her invention, Dr. Johnson recruited a team of volunteers to travel back to various points in history. One of the volunteers was a young man named James, who had always been fascinated by the Roaring Twenties. Dr. Johnson sent James back to the year 1925, just in time for the famous Paris Exposition. James arrived in Paris and was immediately awestruck by the sights and sounds of the city. He walked through the crowded streets, marveling at the Art Deco buildings and the stylishly dressed people. He visited the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, and the famous Moulin Rouge nightclub. But then, something unexpected happened. As James was strolling through the streets one day, he bumped into a young woman named Sophie. They struck up a conversation and discovered they had much in common. They both loved jazz music, and Sophie was an aspiring painter. As James spent more time with Sophie, he began to feel like he had found his true home in the 1920s. He realized that he had always been searching for something, and that he had finally found it in this bygone era. Eventually, it was time for James to return to his own time. He said goodbye to Sophie and boarded the time machine. When he arrived back in 2045, he was a changed man. He realized that he had been searching for a sense of belonging, and that he had found it in a time that he had never expected to visit. From that day on, James made it his life's work to study and appreciate the history and culture of different eras. And he always remembered the time he spent in the 1920s, when he found love, friendship, and a sense of belonging.